Hi and welcome to my Python YouTube channel. It's awesome to have you here. If you like this video, a thumbs up would be great. And make sure to subscribe for future videos. I also have a blog at prosperocoder.com with lots of cool stuff, so feel free to check it out. In the previous part, we left off with the basic Kivy app that displays a label. Now let's explore some other widgets. In particular, I'm going to briefly discuss the widgets I'll be making use of later in this tutorial. So the button widget, the toggle button widget, as well as the checkbox, text input, and slider widgets. I'm going to start with the button widget in this part, and I'll discuss the other widgets in the following parts. You can also read the written version of this video on my Python programming blog at prosperocoder.com. A button widget is basically a label. In Kivy, the button class inherits from label, so they have the same properties in common, plus the button has some extra functionality. In particular, they share the text property. Let's modify our main.py file and our hello-world.kv file so that our program displays a button widget instead of a label. First, let the changes be as few as possible. Here is the main.py file. We're now importing not the label, but the button. So let's change this to button. From kivy.uix.button import button. Fine. And now, in the build method, we don't want to return a label, but rather a button. And now let's move on to the hello-world.kv file. Here, all we have to do is just change label to button. And we can leave the rest as is. So again, the whole string in the text property should be on one line. Anyway, this code is exactly the same as we left off at in the previous part, except for one detail. Now we have the button class instead of the label. Now run this code. First, save it over here, go to main.py and run. And the output will be very much like before, but this time the whole window is filled with our big button, with lots of formatted text on it. If it's a button, you can click it. Give it a try, and you will see that it changes color when clicked. Naturally, nothing else is going to happen because there isn't any code yet that would handle the button click. But we now have a fully functional button. Okay, we can now close it. But how about a button widget that looks more like a button? What we just saw is definitely a button, although usually we don't put so much text on a button. We don't format the text on a button in such a way either. Let's simplify our button a bit so that it looks more like a button we're used to. Let's say we want the button text to read "click here," without any markup formatting or any fancy colors. So, let's modify the code that will give us a simple button. Here, the main.py file remains untouched. And here we need some changes. First of all, the text should be much simpler. We don't need this. Instead, let's set the text to "click here." We can leave the font size at 50, but we don't want any markup formatting here. Fine. Now, If we save this file and run the program, we should see just a simple button like this. Click here. If we click the button, the color changes. So this button fills the whole window now. Why do we even use buttons instead of labels? Well, as I mentioned before, they have some extra functionality. They can be clicked or pressed, as you just saw. I'm going to talk about events in Kivy a bit later, but as we are at it, let's just see how to handle pressing the button directly in Kivy. For more advanced scenarios, we'll be handling events in Python code later on. So, here in our Kivy file, let's say we want the font size to be 100 instead of the original 50 when the button is pressed. The main.py code remains the same, doesn't change. But in the Kivy file, we just add the code that will handle the press event. Fine. On press self font size equals 100. Well, you should use self to refer to the button object itself. So self.text refers to the text property on the button object, and self.fontSize refers to the font size property on the button object. Now, this is our onPress event. Let's save it. And now, if we run the app, we will have the button. If we click it, this text should become larger, twice as large as now. Click. Now the font size is 100. Release. Now the problem with this app is that the font size doesn't change back after you release the button. Fortunately, there's an easy way to fix it. All you have to do is tell the program what to do when the button is released. So, in our Kivy file, we just have to add another event on release self font size equals 50. Save, run. Now it works as expected. If you press the button, the font size is bigger. When you release the button, the font size is smaller again. Bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller. Fine. And now suppose we want the button not only to resize its font when pressed, but also to change the text to pressed. When released, the font size should be set back to 50 and the text should change to click again. You can do it in two ways. The first way is just to add as many unpressed and unreleased lines as needed. So we can do it like this. Another onPress. This time self.text should be set to pressed. And another onRelease event self.text equals click again. Fine. So we can have as many onPress and onRelease events as we want, and they will be all executed. So now when we press the button, two things should happen. The font size should be changed and the text should be changed. The same when we release the button. Two things should happen. Let's save it. Go to main.py and run the file. Click here, click. The size is changed and the text is changed. Release. Again, the size has changed and so has the text. Now, the second, more concise way is to separate the commands by semicolons. So instead of writing these on separate lines, we can just use semicolons to separate the commands, like so. Save, run, and it works exactly the same. Well, this is all you need to know about the button class for now. We'll be using buttons a lot, so we're definitely going to learn more about them in the near future. Anyways, in the next part, I'd like to just touch upon all the other widgets that we'll be making use of, so toggle button, checkbox, text input, and slider. Okay, that's it for this video. If you like it, a thumbs up would be great. Also, make sure to subscribe for future videos. If you want to leave a comment or ask a question, you're welcome to do so. Thanks for watching.